Okay, great, Brad. Well, let's start then. Welcome to the Twitter Spaces, Worldcoin Talk. Today we are Alex and Brad will be speaking today. Syscoin is an open source project founded in 2014 whose coordinated modular platform. We'll be going into the Syscoin project shortly. But first, Brad, can you give us your background and experience and why you got involved in the blockchain space?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been somewhat of an anarchist. Just right out front, I'm a high school dropout, right? So I went my own way. I decided to educate myself. I had a much better go of it, doing that and figuring out how to make the world work for me. Okay, because I'm a unique person. I think everyone is unique, more or less. Yeah, so that's going way back, right? So my professional career was database, enterprise database development. I worked with a few different Fortune 500s, Nuance Communications being one, pioneers in speech recognition tech. I don't know. I mean, once I came across Bitcoin, I found it and this was back around 2011, 2012, so pretty early on. I didn't completely understand it or the the implications of blockchain, but a couple of years later, it really started to sink in. The ramifications for the world, which were so positive, right? And how it solved problems with centralized fiat currency. And centralized issuance, things like the Federal Reserve. So I started paying more attention to it and got more involved, started owning some, and eventually came across a project called Syscoin. And I was quite impressed, with the quality of development that I saw. And the team overall, as well as the vision, it seemed to kind of align with where I wanted blockchain to go. And so I just, as I started participating as a community member, and just got more and more involved. And now I'm a Syscoin Foundation board member, and I'm happy to speak with you today.
Okay, great. I think I've set up Alex as a speaker if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Guerra. I'm one of the business developers with Syscoin. My background comes from traditional finance. Did a lot of sales, marketing, business banking, investment banking. I got into crypto really kind of through the degen side, through the quote unquote ETH killers back in the day, Tron, EOS, blockchains like that. Really just trying to make a quick buck, to be quite honest. But like the typical saying goes, you come in for the money and you stay for the tech. I learned about Syscoin probably about 2017, 2018. I met Jag, our lead core dev, our visionary. And through that, just kind of floated in the community and eventually landed with a great opportunity where I've been able to learn a lot about blockchain architecture and, really be able to contribute to the space and what we think is going to be the future of scalability.
Thank you very much, Alex and Brad, for the introduction. I was speaking there, but I was on mute. Can we start with how the idea was born for Syscoin project and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm happy to answer that. So it was around 2013 that the initial discussions around Syscoin began. The founders had come from some other projects at the time. Dan Weiseluk was from Kittycoin. That was a project that he founded prior to the idea for Syscoin. A little bit later on, like a year or so after initial discussions, Jag Sadhu started getting involved. He was a core developer for DevCoin back in the day. Some of you, like real OGs, might be familiar with DevCoin. Pretty interesting project, but but nevertheless, Syscoin, the idea around it was to essentially create the ideal layer one blockchain, and to make blockchain technology as useful as possible, um, and you know, I guess viable for global mass adoption, right? Which is what everyone wants to see, but in a realistic way that doesn't sacrifice basically the two main points of the trilemma, which are decentralization and security, in our view. Um, so that's essentially in a really tight nutshell what Syscoin was focused on and still remains focused on. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can be expounded from that.
Okay, great. And so if we can start with recent developments you've had at Syscoin, and what's the current focus on behind the scenes?
Yeah, sure. I'll mention a couple of things and let Alex finish this question off. So,
Yeah.
right now we're focused on taking Bedrock, Optimism Bedrock, and adapting it to proof of data availability, which is our layer one data availability solution. Um, Basically, what you have right now in the space when it comes to modular blockchains is, first of all, there aren't very many modular blockchains. Ethereum is moving in that general direction, right? In fact, the merge was focused on taking some important steps to help Ethereum do that. Um, and as part of a modular blockchain, data availability is quite important. The idea of modularity is to be able to scale blockchains on other layers like layer 2, layer 3, and have those layers secured by the layer 1. That seems to be the most viable way to scale without sacrificing decentralization and security, right? So that's really what Syscoin has been looking towards for a long time, is advancements in technology that actually enables you to scale computation without taking a huge knock on security and decentralization, and that's what we see with ZK rollups as well as optimistic rollups. Um, so we're very focused right now on getting our rollup implementations where we want them. The first rollup implementation we have is based on Optimism, and it's on public testnet right now. And we're actually in the process, before we push that to mainnet, we actually want to implement Bedrock and have that integrate with our data availability solution, which should actually make it much faster and even more scalable. The challenge for data availability, is pretty big for rollups in general. There aren't many projects really providing for data availability. There is a project called Celestia, but it's sort of like an external DA layer that it expects rollups to use. That introduces a new consensus into the mix instead of using the original layer one for DA. Ethereum has a DA solution in the works called proto-dank sharding, which is not implemented yet, but which is about a year away. And whereas Syscoin, we have our layer one data availability solution on public testnet right now, and it has been stress tested, and we're currently integrating that with Bedrock, as I said, and we'll, after which we expect our first mainnet optimistic rollup to to be released, which is very exciting. So that's kind of some of what we're working on now. There's a lot of other things as well. I'm sure Alex has some stuff to add.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll break down the data availability thing just because, a lot of people aren't very aware of that. But really, the reason why that is super important, not just for Syscoin, but for blockchain in general and being able to scale, is because the way that rollups work is most of these guys who are working on rollups, they're packaging a lot of information on these smart contracts into a feature called call data. and it's cheap, it's very efficient. But what happens over time is that it kind of overloads the system. So the problem with a lot of these layer twos in the future will be clogging up the network. So it'll again happen in Ethereum over time. That's why they're also focusing on data availability. And what's cool about the way that we've done it is that we've got it on the layer one, so it's completely decentralized, and it's just a lot more efficient to making sure that we can scale infinitely over time, because that way we don't have to deal with the clogging up of the network in the future. On the other end, I could speak for the business side. We have a real keen focus on a lot of GameFi projects are entering to the space, and these are the ones that are very interested in what we have to offer, because the way Syscoin is built, you don't have to worry about scaling in the future, right? So if you have an indie game and it just blows up, is the blockchain going to be good enough to handle, millions of transactions? Well, yes. The answer, the short answer is yes. With Syscoin, we've also got what we call DAO-Sys, which is a blockchain infrastructure that makes it easy for other projects to deploy their own app chains on Syscoin. Essentially, we're talking layer three blockchains. So if you want to have a private blockchain, a public blockchain on top of Syscoin, you can also do that as well. So the team has been focusing a lot on getting the key infrastructure pieces to make adoption easy, and then bringing in a ton of projects. We've got quite a few that we're talking to. A lot of them are already on the Optimism testnet from the optimistic rollup that we have. So we're excited about the future that is nearing, and kind of the growth of the ecosystem. A lot of people, you may look at Syscoin right now and you may say, oh, there's not much going on there. Well, the reason for that is because on layer one, we actually de-incentivize usage, and that's why we have a 2.5 minute block time. So it's pretty slow. We've got a couple of apps there, but the reason why we de-incentivize the usage is because we're built for rollups, because we don't want the system to be overloaded. So as you see this layer two come in, you'll see the ecosystem really start to thrive.
Okay, great. So I was reading you're working on support for rollups on Bitcoin. So it's the Rolex Op V1. Can we talk about the work you're doing with Mexi in that area?
Yeah, sure. So what makes our rollups secured by Bitcoin is it's a couple of factors. So first of all, we're merge mined with Bitcoin on layer one. We have about 20 to 30% of Bitcoin's own hash rate, or miners, I should say, supporting our network. And there's a couple of reasons that that's really a great thing. First of all, merge mining is carbon neutral, so it's really the only truly carbon neutral form of proof of work. So it essentially enables miners of a main network to share their work, or the proof of the work they've done, with another blockchain, essentially present that work as a voucher, and that secondary chain can use that work, to mine a block, and then reward that miner. So that means that Bitcoin actually has incentives beyond just fees in the future, once block rewards run out, which has always been a big question for Bitcoin. What happens then? Well, merge mining was created back in the day by Satoshi Nakamoto. And in his discussions with the guys at BitDNS that later became known as Namecoin, it's essentially an answer that's staring everyone in the face to Bitcoin's, block or coin emission question. So we're very happy about that. We've been merge mined for a long time, and we like to educate people. We're associated with a group called the Global Merge Mining Alliance, where we help people understand merge mining better. We think it's a critically important Bitcoin primitive that will become only more relevant into the future. So that's one way that we're secured by Bitcoin very directly by its own network. And the other way is we tend to stick with very close to Nakamoto consensus, even on our own chain. We're not using Bitcoin's consensus, so like it's not like Syscoin is Bitcoin in the sense of the coin itself. We have our own native coin, Sys, with its own tokenomics that are focused on EIP 1559, same as Ethereum, for utmost utility, right? So we're a utility-focused chain. So we don't want to be using Bitcoin's, consensus and tokenomics, but we do use standard Nakamoto consensus as far as just the logic for securing the network, with some additional things on top through our master nodes to provide finality within the proof of work paradigm. So the work that we're doing with Mexi, essentially, Mexi is getting the early opportunity to review projects that are looking to launch on Syscoin, and they'll have the advantage of being able to fund those projects early on. We've passed a couple of different projects to Mexi here recently. Of course, the announcement wasn't very long ago. It was like a couple of weeks ago that we announced the ecosystem fund that they're providing, which is a $20 million US dollar ecosystem fund, just from their exchange alone, or venture arm, I should say. That's pretty exciting. They like the idea of rollups on Bitcoin. I know there's some different initiatives or people discussing about rollups on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin itself really isn't expressive enough for rollups to have what they need to really function ideally on a blockchain like Bitcoin. There needs to be more data availability. There needs to be expressiveness, but Syscoin is really the closest that you can get, being merge mined with Bitcoin's own network, and the things that I just discussed, and those aspects really are about the closest that you can reasonably get. Bitcoin can in the future perhaps take advantage of ZK technology, with things like client-side proving, that's a whole other ball of wax. I don't want to get into too much. It would probably get it's a little technical, so I'll just cut it off there.
Yeah, if anything, I think the main thing that I would love the audience here to understand is just the term merge mining, because I feel it's like so underrated. So yeah, guys, if anything, like merge mining is basically a technique to reutilize proof of work from one blockchain to secure another blockchain. It's what Syscoin does. It's what a couple other blockchains do. Definitely keep that in mind.
Okay, great, Alex and Brad. It seems Syscoin is offering the best of both worlds. It's got security of power with the energy efficiency of POS. Because Syscoin has neutral proof of work, alternative to Ethereum's proof of stake approach. And with the power and POS debate raging, I was wondering on your thoughts on that, and what the main competition is in that area, and how you're doing a different style out.
Yeah, so we've got proof of work, which we consider to be the gold standard for decentralized security. We want to stick with that on the layer one. It's really easy to just shift to proof of stake. It makes you look good in the eyes of maybe people who don't fully understand decentralized consensus or just haven't thought it through. It's kind of like the POP approach, with so many projects, going that direction after EOS sort of put itself forward as, the biggest example of doing that. Back in the day, what was that, like 2017? So kind of back in the day, not too long ago. It's really relatively new, a newer idea as far as the level of adoption that it has, proof of stake. But we see that there are some risks involved with it, economic risks in particular. The economic vector really, deals a lot with fiat, hyperinflationary black swan. The ability for a large firm to move in and just simply buy a whole bunch of a coin with some money that they got from a bailout or something like that. Just kind of a wild scenario, right? But those scenarios can be real, and thereby they could gain control of the network, and influence it. So, we see that risk with proof of stake. We don't see that as much with proof of work, especially Bitcoins, which is very robust. Proof of work involves manufacturing, it involves the energy sector, logistics. There's really a lot more to it. It makes it harder to game, much harder to game, economically or financially than proof of stake, right? And I'm not throwing proof of stake out completely. I think proof of stake is useful. I think it serves purposes, especially I think with layer 2, layer 3. But I think for layer 1, and Syscoin's opinion is that for layer 1, proof of work is really where we need to be. Proof of stake is also useful as kind of an extra security layer on top of proof of work. And we have a layer like that, that we refer to as masternodes, where we're using BLS signatures. This gets a little bit technical, but right now we have about 2,500 masternodes on the network. It tends to fluctuate, but it stays around that number. Over half of them have been running for over 2.5 years, supporting our network, which is quite a testament to how the degree to which our community has diamond hands, right? And essentially, these masternodes serve to provide a probabilistic form of finality that accomplishes what Ethereum is aiming to accomplish in its move, through the merge. So, and they still haven't gotten it down yet. So even post-merge, Ethereum's not quite there. It still has a ways to go. But proof of stake with Casper, which is what Ethereum has, is what they're proposing. Casper is what they're proposing as the finality mechanism, which is all based on proof of stake. We're able to accomplish finality within the proof of work paradigm in a decentralized way, with our pretty robust masternode network. As far as the competition out there, I would say there's no shortage. There's absolutely no shortage of proof of stake networks that are EVM clones, right? Clones, sort of like clones of Ethereum. And they really managed to sort of stand in the gap for Ethereum's user experience that was somewhat lacking, and this was really particularly like in 2019, 2020, the EVM market, I guess, was where a lot of attention was getting paid. We had projects like Solana in 2021 that really took off, and really what enabled them to get so much attention in the market was the fact that they could provide low fees and high speed or high throughput. Whereas Ethereum is slower and costs more. The goal has always been for Ethereum to scale. But the fact is, once Ethereum completes its goals in regard to the merge and the things that are coming after it, which it's made great progress in. Where are those networks going to be left? Because Ethereum will be proof of stake. They're already proof of stake. Ethereum's going to have a more robust network. It's going to be modular. It's going to have data availability. So they're really kind of left in the dark as far as a purpose, unless they re-envision themselves, or and what they'll probably do most likely, the Binance smart chains and other sort of generic EVM forks that are proof of stake, is they'll try to pass themselves off as modular. You'll probably see them launch rollups on top of their layer 1s, right? To try to appear, relevant. But really, ultimately, they'll probably become rollups themselves on Ethereum or Syscoin, right? And where Syscoin is really relevant here, where we really stand out, is the fact that we're proof of work. We've stuck with proof of work, and we've found ways to solve the challenges that led to Ethereum abandoning proof of work and going to proof of stake. All the way from having a carbon neutral form of proof of work to, even much more importantly, having finality, having a modular design, providing data availability. All of these things that Ethereum still hasn't quite accomplished yet. We already have solutions for the most part, including, as I said, DA is already on our public testnet. It's going to take Ethereum at least a year to get layer 1 DA going, including creating a new fee market for it and all this. Yeah, it's still about a year away. So we're ahead. And we're also proof of work. So there's this whole camp of people in the world of Ethereum that really prefer proof of work. And I'm of the personal opinion that probably includes Vitalik. To be perfectly honest, I've looked over his tweets and I don't think he's completely sold on the direction Ethereum has gone, but it's a little late, right? And he has to support what the community wants, right? As in the position he's in, so or at least he feels that way. So it's understandable, but there's a big camp of proof of work believers, and supporters of the oldest decentralized consensus mechanism, and Syscoin is where they look, right? So we're 100% EVM compatible. Anything that can run on Ethereum can run on Syscoin, but we're sticking with proof of work, and not just any proof of work, but Bitcoin's own proof of work. I don't know, Alex, I went on for quite a while. Alex, I don't know if you have anything to add.
We're chirping at you. I think they agree though. I want to get back to the whole proof of work versus proof of stake debate that kind of originally inspired what you were saying, Brad. And in reality, like, let's be real, like, this is all about the ESG narrative, the green narrative, and not that there's anything wrong with being green. It's great actually, but when we really start to think about it, it's more agenda driven. You find, these camps either on one extreme side or the other extreme side. But when it comes to proof of stake, there's no guarantee that the provenance of the staked capital is any more clean than the energy that's expended in a proof of work, mining environment. So, like, in reality, how do you know that that's clean money? So there's a lot of debate in this section, and there's a lot of hypocrisy, honestly. So really, it's a big debate to be had. I don't know if Wellcoin guys, you have any additional opinions on that, but I do think that there's it's more than, there's two sides to the coin, right?
Yeah, definitely, Alex. I mean, you can use renewable energy, hydro, wind and solar as well for proof of work. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, environmentally damaging. There's plenty of, if you go to Australia and really hot places and build a solar farm, you can mine it very ecologically with no footprint at all. But moving on, I was also wondering what the sort of timeline is for Syscoin project, the level 1 blockchain to go to the mainnet, and also what sort of gas fees would it be for investors?
Right. So the layer 1 blockchain has been live since December of 2021, and we're looking at launching the layer 2 uh, if we're lucky by the end of this year or latest first quarter of next year. We're already on testnet. The gas fees are looking excellent. And then once we incorporate the proof of data availability, it should be even cheaper. Should definitely scale. In the long run, we are, looking to, uh, I wouldn't say transition, but really incorporate zero knowledge proof, zero knowledge rollups. We think that's going to be the end game, but that side of things is probably a good 18 plus months away from really taking strong development, because that's going to also require mining, right? You're talking about a new industry with ZK mining because there's so much computation behind that. So that's going to take a while. So in the meantime, we should be, just fine in order to scale, and then we'll kind of take it up a notch. But back to like what Brad was saying, we've got the whole modular design, so we're kind of built for this.
Yeah, our fees are super low. I think a typical. I'm trying to remember just off the top of my head. I think a typical value transfer of a token is something like 0.0005 sys or something like that. So it's absolutely minuscule, and that's for the layer one.
Yeah.
The layer two is going to be even more inexpensive, I think, by 20 to 50 times. But I don't know the exact figure because we still need to get our fee estimation engine working properly on the test net there. So that's something that we've got going. But it'll be even a lot cheaper than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Line, and we launched like a Telegram tip bot, and the smart contract was literally 0.000, like 5 zeros and then 2. So you're talking about a fraction of a cent.
Okay, great. I think Noah wants to come in with a comment and a question as well. Yeah, Noah?
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Wanted to first of all thank the Syscoin team, Alex. Thank you guys so much for being here. Roland, thank you for setting this up. I honestly wish you guys came on for an hour because I think that you have a lot to teach us, and it's been an informative AMA to say the least. We had a debate on POW versus POS a couple weeks ago on here, and it would have been nice to have you guys. From what I understand, and I guess the amount of research that I did, like they both have their talking points, but in the long run, POW requires real world inputs, and so because of that, miners are going to find the most cost efficient way to mine and the most energy neutral way to find. So, as just piggybacking on what Glenn said, not just hydro and solar, but also working with landfills and gas companies to harness and cap methane and wasted gas resources. So, like that's just the whole POW is awful for the environment. I don't know. It's a bit of a strong talking point. But one question for you guys is, with all the layer ones and layer two solutions that are currently out there, what are some ways that you guys are planning on attracting liquidity, bringing liquidity over? Are you guys going to do a liquidity incentive program like Optimism or Avalanche or Polygon? What's your plan?
That's a really good question, and it's something that we've been, analyzing because we got to be real. Like the market's very competitive, and it's something that we'll definitely consider. But at the end of the day, you think about these DeFi in general, right? With getting TVL, it's like many of these blockchains are fighting for a very small piece of the pie because most of it's going to lay on Ethereum for the time being. Our strategy is more in regards to getting the user base through actual usage on the blockchain and then having them bring the TVL. We've also got like some infrastructure partners that we're developing that are going to make it easier for cross-chain swaps and things like that. So that'll make getting TVL quite a bit easier. But in reality, I think that the best approach is to go for the users and start scaling, and then watch the TVL climb after that.
Yeah, so I can elaborate on this a little bit. We do have quite a few projects that that are committed and are actively working to deploy on our layer two. If you look back at the Syscoin Twitter, a couple of weeks ago, we posted a really long thread. I think it's something like 20 tweets of different partners that are currently building on our layer two. Some of those, include ApeSwap, Beefy Finance, and some others as well. Samurai Starter, and some quite a few. What's interesting is if you look at TVL, it's a great percentage of the TVL on multiple chains consists of value from the same addresses, which is kind of interesting to think about. So you have these existing projects that basically just sort of duplicate what they're doing on other chains. But we're really kind of focused on projects that are sort of leading the way in innovation. We want our ecosystem to be different and to be more useful and to kind of push the boundaries of blockchain and of DeFi. So a lot of the projects that we work with kind of have a unique take on how they're doing things. And we really like the idea of finding those projects that are doing things differently or that have a new and innovative idea, and working with them because we feel that long term, that's where the really interesting things are going to happen that really form the future.
Right. Like there's some of my partners that are might get a little upset, but DeFi is getting pretty boring. There hasn't been much innovation on it lately. But the partners that we do have that we're close with, they're incorporating new things. So, in my personal opinion, I rather work with just a few really good, innovative DeFi projects rather than just try to bring in a ton of them and try to get, TVL here, TVL there, and grow it that way. The strategy definitely needs to be with bringing real, real world projects that are going to create, a lot of transactions, but a lot of usage as well. And then that's where, the interest will come in and you'll naturally get the TVL.
Okay, it's been great speaking to Alex and Brad from Syscoin. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today. Like Noah says, we can set something up in the future for some debates that Noah has on Twitter Spaces with the Syscoin team in the future. That would be great. Thank you very much for coming today, guys. It's been great speaking to you. If anyone wants to know any more information about Syscoin, you can click on the Twitter logo there for Syscoin, and that'll send you to their socials and everything to get better acquainted. It seems a good time to invest with the layer 1 and layer 2 blockchain coming shortly. So it's been great speaking to you today, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.